Good afternoon, everyone. I am Precious, and together with my groupmates, Faye, Leo, and Cheryl, we will be discussing Chapter 7 Analyzing Business Markets. But before we dive in, let me just give you an overview of what you can expect from today's presentation. We will start off with the definition of organizational buying. Then we will proceed to identifying who the decision makers are or the participants in the buying process, as well as the different stages that they undergo prior to reaching a buying decision. After which, we will cover how organizations can develop effective B2B marketing programs and in turn manage customer relationships. Finally, we will end our presentation with a local and global application to highlight the important points of our discussion. So, what is organizational buying? It is the decision making process by which organizations establish the need for purchased products and services and how they identify, evaluate, and choose from a pool of suppliers. So, again, our focus here is the business market and how they purchase the products and services of another business as opposed to the consumer market, which was previously covered by Group 2. The table here summarizes the major differences between the two markets. The first characteristic is demand, which is pretty self-explanatory. In the business market, demand comes from the organizations because they are the direct buyers, while in the consumer market, it comes from the individuals. But then again, it is important to remember that even for business markets, ultimately, it is the end users that drive the demand for purchased products and services, which makes the understanding of the consumer market still relevant to business marketers. In terms of volume, the business market definitely generates larger orders, especially those involved with the manufacturing industry, where minimum order quantities are usually required in order for suppliers to mass produce. For the number of customers, the business market is obviously fewer. When it comes to location, the business market is more concentrated. What this means is that businesses acquiring the same type of product or service from a supplier often flock in the same area or region. For example, in the Philippines, most local fashion retail companies that outsource their production in China are often situated in Metro Manila. This results in a more direct type of distribution as opposed to a consumer market where distribution can be done through intermediaries. In terms of the nature of buyers in the business market are more objective and professional in their decision-making process, as they have to follow certain set of rules and requirements set by their organizations. This makes negotiations in the business market more complex than in the consumer market because these transactions are considered major business decisions that have to align with the organization's overall business strategies and plans first and foremost before proceeding. Finally, as suppliers are transacting with a smaller business market, maintaining good relationships in the business market is very important. This especially applies to long-term clients where suppliers are somewhat forced to reciprocate by adding value-adding services to increase client retention and just to continuously secure long-term contracts from these clients. Now, there are three buying situations that organizations usually face. These are straight rebuy, modified rebuy, and retask. In straight rebuy, organizations repurchase existing items or products on a regular basis from an approved list of suppliers without changing any of the order requirements. So examples would be office supplies. Now in modified rebuy, this is when an organization repurchases existing items but does some modifications on the order requirements including the price, the materials, sometimes the design of the product and other order requirements. So for example, in my line of work before as a footwear buyer, we usually reorder top selling shoe designs from the same set of suppliers. But what we do is we try to make it appear trendy by changing the materials or even the colors of existing products. So that's how we're able to build a completely new collection from already existing products. And the last one is called new task. So it is when an organization purchases a product or a service for the first time. Now, as I've mentioned a while ago, negotiations in the business market are more complex than in the consumer market. And this is precisely because of the number of people involved in the decision-making process. The participants shown here in this slide are those that collectively form what we call the buying center of the organization. Now, I won't discuss each role in detail as they are pretty much straightforward, but in essence, these participants may have their personal preferences or even take on certain decisions or issues faced by the organization. But at the end of the day, they still collaborate and ensure that their decisions align with the company's overall business objectives. So now that we've covered what organizational buying is, what makes a business market, what are the different buying situations that organizations usually face, and finally, who are the participants in this decision-making process, we will now discuss the 8 different stages that buyers undergo in order to make informed decisions. And this will be covered by my groupmate Leo.
Hello, good evening. My name is Leo, and I'm going to be discussing the next 2 topics, which is the purchasing process and marketing programs for business to business. So for the purchasing process, we're going to be talking about 2 identities, mainly the buyer and the seller. And for the seller, we're going to be focusing on what the perspective of the business marketer is. And for the buyer, their goal is simple. It's to seek the best benefit package, be it economic, technical, service, and social in relationship to what the market offers. And for the business marketers, on the other hand, their goal is simple as well. They want to ensure that the customers or the buyers fully appreciate how the firm's offerings are different, are unique, or better, how they stand out from the rest. So it's very critical for business marketers to be able to frame their firm to a perspective or a point of view that allows the seller to think that they're making the best decision in their life. It can be as simple as making the buyers think and recognize all the benefits that the firm offers, all the cost savings they can afford, or just simply becoming more influential towards the buyer's eyes. What we're going to be digging deeper in my discussion are the 8 buying stages, or what we call as the buying phases, the buy phases. So the first stage in the 8 wonders of the world, the 8 buy phases, is what we call as problem recognition. The buying process begins when someone in the company recognizes a problem or need that can only be addressed by acquiring a good or a service. So this realization may come through an internal means or external means. Internally, when a company wants to create a new product, or if there's something that they need to develop on, they might want new materials, new goods, new equipment, and new services. So that's kind of like an internal drive, internal stimuli. So when we talk about external stimuli, it could be when your company goes to trade shows and they get new ideas. They can see new advertisements, they receive new emails, they read a blog, or they receive a call from really good business marketers. So the challenge for business marketers is to stimulate the problem recognition phase so that the buying process gets going. So that's what we want to happen as business marketers. So the table you can see below is the buy grid framework. And here you can see actually the 8 stages already. It starts with problem recognition, followed by general need description, product specification, supplier search, proposal solicitation, supplier selection, order routine, specification, and lastly, performance review. And it is latched on to the buy classes, which was discussed prior, which is the new task, modified rebuy, and straight rebuy. So in the buy grid framework, we can see whether all the stages are required per buy class. So as you can see, for new task, all the stages are required. For modified rebuy, it's a so-so. Only 2 stages are required, product specification and performance review. And lastly, for straight rebuy, it's strictly only product specification and performance review. So that's the buy grid framework. And the first stage is what? It's the problem recognition phase. So the second stage in the buying process is what we call as general need description. Here, the buyer determines the items quantity or characteristics that they're trying to find. For standard items, it's simple, but for complex items, here they work with engineers and other users or end users. So they've tried to find the characteristics that meet their needs. That can be, it should have reliability, durability, it should be cost effective, and the dimensions should be okay, or any kind of characteristic that they're trying to find. In this stage, business marketers help by describing how their product matches or meets or even exceeds the needs of the buyer. The third stage is the product specification stage. Once you get the description done, the next stage is defining the technical specifications, like the nitty-gritty details. So the buyers usually employ PVA here, or product value analysis, wherein they try to find ways to get the components redesigned or standardized or even made cheaper without even negatively affecting the performance. So it's not just the buyers that are doing this, also the suppliers and their marketers. They use PVA to get insight on how they can position themselves to make their company or their firm attractive to the buyers. So it goes both ends, PVA. The fourth stage is supplier search. Once you get the general needs done and the product specifications done, you search for suppliers. You search for a match. Parang Tinder, no? You search for a match. The buyer next tries to identify the most appropriate suppliers, either through trade directories, contacts from other companies, trade advertisements, trade shows, and most of all, the internet, which is the rising trend right now in finding suppliers. So when you go to the internet, you can see catalog sites, vertical markets, spot exchange markets, private exchanges, and a lot of types of things are already in the internet. That is why e-procurement is the rising trend. So for marketers, what's our job? What are the suppliers' tasks? It's to ensure that it is considered every time a buyer is trying to search for something. That's the main goal. You have to make sure that your firm is ready, sales ready. You have to position yourself in a means wherein the buyer sees that this is the one that we need. This is the right one for me. Love life. So yun. So that's the job of the marketers. They want to position their company such that they are the top lead for the buyers to finally get that deal. And the fifth stage of the buying process is proposal solicitation. Once they are able to get the short list from the supplier search, they invite the suppliers to submit written proposals. And after doing that, they grade it and send them a letter A as a grade. Check for grammar. Just kidding. Once they get the written proposals done, what they do is they invite the suppliers to make formal presentations, to get to meet the suppliers and get to meet the product up to face. I don't know if that's going to be the case now given the pandemic, but apparently this is another stage. You have to solicit proposals on the fifth stage of the buying process. So let's review. First is problem recognition, general need description. Then you find the technical specifications, the product specs, and then you search for suppliers. And once you get the short list, you get the proposals. The sixth stage is where you finally get to choose which supplier to marry. This is the supplier selection stage. Here, the buyers specify and rank the desired supplier attributes, often using a supplier evaluation model, just like what you see here in vendor analysis, so that they can rank and choose points and pin the attributes towards the supplier and finally get to see which to choose. Here in this table, we can see that the attributes are supplier reputation, price, product reliability, service reliability, and supplier flexibility. And they assign the weights towards what is much more important to them. So the highest weight is, of course, price, followed by, and product reliability too, followed by reputation, and then lastly, service reliability and supplier flexibility. And then they assign points, and then they rank them based on those points. So for the business marketers and for the suppliers, the challenge here is to how to assess your company yourselves so that you can get to at least arrive at the same valuation the buyers are doing. So there are multiple ways to do customer value propositions, or how you get to assess the value that you're offering. One of the ways is internal engineering assessment. You have your engineers test your own products in-house. Also, you could do field value in assessment. You interview customers, and you could also do focus groups. You do direct surveys, you do conjoint analysis, or you benchmark with other companies And then you can also do ratings or your own surveys or your own vendor analysis. So here in this section, what's important is that we get to finally pinpoint or tag what value our company offers. So that is the challenge for the supplier, to arrive at the same evaluation that the buyer is going to do. This is a 6-stage supplier selection. The last 2 stages of the buying process is order routine specification and performance review. In the 7th stage, in the order routine specification, you finally have the supplier that you're gonna marry. And in this case, you're finally gonna negotiate the final order or the terms of what you're gonna be doing. Is this gonna be a long-term commitment, or is this just gonna be a fling or something like that? Here you list the technical specifications, the quantities needed, the expected times or deliveries, return policies, and every so and so of what you really need. You highlight and you list down and you document it. What are the specifications for this order routine that we're finally getting into, the contract, as I may say. And for the last one, it's the performance review. Here, we periodically review the performance of the supplier, of the person you just made contracts with, to either continue, modify, or end the supplier relationship. It's sad, right? But this actually completes the loop. You identify if the supplier still deserves to be part of your contract, or are you gonna find someone better and move on with your life, okay? So there are a lot of ways to do contract or performance reviews. Either you contact end users and ask for their evaluations. You ask them, how is this for you? Is this good, or are you experiencing difficulties? Should I choose someone else? Should I choose another supplier? The second one is you rate supplier using rated score criteria, just like what you've seen in the previous slide. You rate them based on attributes with weighted importances, and then you rate them and you rank them. Is this still good for me, or should I replace them? And lastly, if you're gonna continue with that supplier, you aggregate the cost of the poor performance, and then you adjust the future cost. This is how you did badly, so in the next term, I'm gonna have to charge you much less. So that's the 8 stages of the buying process. Let's review. First, you go for the problem recognition. You determine what is the need that you need solving. Next, you generalize the needs. You describe it. Then you do the product specifications. You specify the details of what you need. And then you search for suppliers. Once you get a short list, you ask them for their proposals. Once you get the proposals, you rank them and select who you're gonna be with. And then you define and negotiate the final order with the person you finally, or the company you finally chose. And then lastly, you review it. It performs the loop back again, whether you're gonna go back to other stages and find other suppliers, or gonna continue. Those are the 8 stages of the buying process in the lens of the buyer and the seller, or the business marketer. Here, we're gonna be discussing developing effective business-to-business marketing programs. We're gonna be looking at the best practices of prominent companies when it comes to communication, branding, systems buying and selling, and the role of services. So the first thing that we're going to be discussing today is more on communication and branding activities. So business-to-business marketers are already using every marketing tool at their disposal to attract and retain customers. So they're also increasingly recognizing the benefits and importance of your brand when it comes to communicating and branding yourself to the view of your buyers. So I think the best way that we can get the best practices for this is to look at how the success stories of these companies. Let's start first with, I think, NetApp. So NetApp is a Fortune 100 company providing data management and storage solutions. And what they did to be able to ramp up their own business-to-business relationships was to create a new identity to be able to provide a solution that to the problems that are plaguing them. They created a new identity, architecture, nomenclature, tone of voice, and a new tagline like "Go further, faster." And what this did was actually put them to a pedestal wherein they succeeded as a company. Another one is SAS, SAS. It's another business analytics software services firm. And one of the ways that they were able to level up their B2B marketing relationships was they worked on their first outside ad agency ever. SAS, they also did and made a new logo, the one that you're gonna see here, and a new slogan as well, "The Power to Know," and a series of TV spots and print ads in publications like Business Week, Forbes, and the such. So later research actually showed that SAS made the transition to mainstream their business so that people would more understand the technicalities of a business analytics software company. So the thing is, what communication and branding does is that it bridges your company towards the buyer, such that the buyer gets to see a much more treadable path so that they can get to choose you even better. And let's look at other companies. Like, for example, Chapman Kelly. Chapman Kelly is an audit firm, and what they did is they redesigned their website, they optimized their search engine. And you can see here, research suggests that 93% of almost all B2B, business to business purchases start with a good search engine maybe. And that's what most of these companies did. They optimized their search, and we can also call that as SEO, search engine optimization. Another one is Emerson Process Management. It's a process management firm, and what they did is they made a blog wherein they shared factory stories. And here, mavens or people with interest in Emerson Process, they like reading the blogs, and in doing so, they create this kind of audience, this kind of like connection to them. And in doing so, really good communication and branding. And then we have machinery manufacturer Makino, and what Makino did was that they did not blogs but ongoing industry specific webinars. Okay, and they get the database of webinar participants. In doing so, they get the connections already. What they did is they established a communication pathway with their possible leads or possible buyers in the future. So if Emerson did blogs and Makino did webinars, what did Kinaxis do? Kinaxis is a supply chain management firm. And what they do is they went beyond when it comes to the communication approach. They made blogs, white papers, and a video channel. I'm not sure, maybe this is YouTube, but they really embraced the power of communication to bridge towards a wider audience. And hey, when you want to search for a company, make sure that you focus on search, because it's where 93% of all B2B purchases start. Just like what I shared ago when it comes to the buying process. And lastly, I didn't include the logo here, but you know Xerox, right? What Xerox did was they added a personal touch when it comes to their advertisements. So there were two Marriott bellmen. So there were two bellmen, or there were two assistants sitting in an office. Did you finish last month's invoices? One asks the other. No, but I did pick up your dry cleaning and have your shoes cleaned. The second replies, well, I made you a reservation at the sushi place around the corner. The first bellman says. The voiceover follows. Marriott knows, or this company knows, it's better for Xerox to automate their global invoice processes so they can focus on serving their customers. See? So what they did was they kind of like added a personal touch to this kind of like advertisement agency. What they were able to drive was that if you do the automation with us, the firm Marriott, you're gonna be able to have more time doing more important stuff like getting your dry cleaning or your shoes shine. And that's the power that we're gonna be able to give you. We're gonna be able to free up your time. So automate with us. The next one is systems buying and selling. So systems buying is simply this. Many buyers prefer to buy a total problem solution from one seller. They call this a turnkey solution because you only need to turn one key and you get the whole solution. Rather than buying separate services wherein there's a service A, service B, service C from separate sellers, many sellers or firms are providing the whole solution already. For example, they're like prime to second tier contractors, wherein they're already the prime contractor themselves. They provide the whole system to the buyer. System selling, on the other hand, or what we call as systems contracting, is where a single supplier provides the entire MRO, or the maintenance, repair, and operation inventory. So the customer or the buyer benefits from reduced procurement and management costs, because instead of finding other companies or other sellers to provide this, and that, you only get to find one, which provides the whole turnkey solution, the whole package. And from price protection over the term of the contract, you don't talk to different suppliers, you just talk to one. The seller also achieves lower operating costs, thanks to a steady demand because they only have one person to focus all their resources to, and reduce paperwork because you're not you're not entertaining a lot of buyers, just one, because you're providing this buyer your whole solution. Let me share with you a really good story when it comes to systems buying and selling. Selling to the Indonesian government. The Indonesian government one time requested for bids to build a cement factory near Jakarta. So here comes US. And what they did, the US firm made a proposal. They made a proposal towards the cement factory that included choosing the site, designing the factory, hiring construction crews, assembling materials, and turning over the finished factory to the Indonesian government. It's a good turnkey solution. This is our package. It's a turnkey solution. It's a systems buy. A Japanese firm, on the other hand, offered something else. In their proposal, they included everything that the US firm said, plus hiring and training of the workers to run the factory, exporting the cement through its trading companies, and using the cement to build roads and new offices in Jakarta. Look at that. The value was way beyond what US offered. Although the Japanese plan costed more money, we all know who the Indonesian company actually chose. They chose the Japan firm. Because when it comes to system selling, always take the broadest view of the customer's needs. Don't just look at what's being asked. Look broader, and maybe they're gonna be able to bypass a cost because they know that you're looking at what they're needing the most. That's systems buying and systems selling. It's like selling a package, buying a package. Third is the role of services. Adding high quality services to a product offerings allows businesses to provide greater value and establish closer ties. So this is very similar to systems selling, just like what the Japanese firm did. So for example, how Rolls-Royce did it, aside from just selling cars, they add more value by providing long-term repair and maintenance contracts. Okay? Adobe, on the other hand, provides cloud support, website hosting, and server management. That's on top of their applications. As you can see, you can actually drive maybe your price or your negotiations further if you add more value. And that is one of the best ways to actually build business-to-business relationships or marketing programs. So let me sum it up. The three things that people do, companies do, really effective companies do to develop effective B2B marketing programs. First, they establish really good communication branding activities. Second, they consider systems buying and selling. They sell the whole package. And third, they always add value. They add the role of services. Thank you all for listening. And I think that's that for the purchasing process, the buying process that we discussed a while ago, and the effective B2B marketing programs. Thank you all for listening. Let me turn you over to Faye.
Now let's talk about managing business-to-business customer relationships. Follow me to the next slide and let's get started. Businesses are built on the foundation of trust and loyalty. And for B2B companies, customer satisfaction is imperative to their success. Because without happy and loyal customers, where would any business be? Let's keep that line of thought for a moment as we move on to the next slide. Alright, still with me? Great. Now speaking of trust and loyalty in B2B, this is built in part by the supply chain management, early supplier involvement, and purchasing alliances. All three signifies the role that both parties play in the success of their respective businesses. Trust, coordination, adaptation, and loyalty are the fundamentals to conducting and maintaining a successful B2B partnership. In this slide, let me tell you about vertical coordination. Specifically, what it is and why is it important. In essence, vertical coordination refers to the process where teamwork is harnessed in an organization to attain success. So quite similar to any relationship, it takes two to build mutual trust to strengthen that relationship. Vertical coordination is important because the greater the vertical coordination between buying partners and sellers leads to the greater trust building between these two parties. And this is the prerequisite to healthy long-term relationships. After all, you cannot do business with people you don't trust. Now that we've covered vertical coordination and how it establishes trust between buyers and sellers, let's now take a look at the 8 buyer-seller relationships. First, we have the basic buying and selling that involves moderate levels of cooperation and trust between the buyer and the seller. Unlike the second with the bare bones, we usually see more adaptation on the seller side compared to the customer side. And third, we have the contractual transaction. Based on context alone, we can determine that this relationship is defined by the formal contract, so both parties should not expect a high level of trust, cooperation, and interaction. Fourth is customer supply that takes the form of competition, taking the reign over cooperation. 5 is cooperative analysis, wherein both parties present a united front in terms of operation. However, neither demonstrates or is committed to one another through a legal contract or adapting as they go along. 6 is everyone's favorite collaboration, where both trust and cooperation are encouraged to form a true and solid partnership. Unlike number 7, which is mutually adaptive, which means that both the buyer and the seller are prone to making adjustments and compromises to one another to maintain the relationship, but with neither party necessarily trusting each other. And last, but certainly not the least, is number 8, with customer is king, also synonymous to the saying that the customer is always right. So the seller adapts to meet the customer's needs without expecting them to do the same. So we've covered the concepts that you need to know when it comes to analyzing business markets. Let's see them in action in both local and global application. So here in our side of the world, we have Metromart, which is an on-demand purchasing service that enables users to order direct from their favorite stores and have it delivered on the same day straight to their doorstep. Pick and choose from groceries, electronics, pet care, and a whole lot more. Metromart has a great variety of stores that differs per location. Metromart, being a purchase and delivery service, has 3 key business-to-business marketing strategies, with the first being a hassle-free payment because it provides an extensive choice in their payment channels, not limited to the ever-crowd favorite, cash on delivery. It has partners with payment giants like GCash and PayMaya and many more. Number 2 is to take care of all your buyer needs is a designated personal shopper at each partner merchant. So if you can't be there yourself, don't sweat it because you have a personal shopper that has got your back. In the case of unavailable items, possible substitutions, and whatever concern you have, you'll be catered to in real time. Last is everyone's favorite, discounts and cashbacks. Shopping has got a whole lot better because the experience you get is all the perks you have and the comfort of your home. These 3 strategies are a great example of B2B marketing because it showcases not only both the product and service of both parties, but also using their respective brands to entice customers to purchase and remain loyal. A win-win situation makes an excellent marketing strategy.
For the global application, we decided to select a company that is very relevant today, as most businesses are now working towards establishing a stronger online presence in order to sustain their growth. Shopify here is an e-commerce solutions provider that currently caters to over 1.7 million businesses worldwide. In the Philippines, some of the renowned clients include Vice Cosmetics, Sony Studios, and Wildleaf. Now, what makes Shopify a great platform is the wide array of services that they offer to their clients. That includes shop customization, shopping cart suite, which covers the different payment options, search engine optimization, and marketing tools that allow the website to be integrated with different social media accounts, and most importantly, analytics, which enables businesses to review their products' performances. Now, as what Leo pointed out earlier, businesses now prefer to work with vendors that can offer everything. Not only is it more cost-effective, but it also helps to streamline business processes. And this is what Shopify strives to accomplish in its service design. Shopify's well-crafted service design, along with their excellent B2B marketing strategies, brought the company to where it is now. In this last slide, I will highlight 3 strategies that have helped the company grow through the years. In terms of customer acquisition, what has been proven to be effective for the company is the 14-day trial. The company recognized that there is really no better way to sell a product or a service other than to let their customers experience it firsthand. Of course, everything should be free. Yes, it was a bold move from the company, but at the end of the day, it was still very effective. Meanwhile, in terms of customer retention, the company established a help center, prepared business courses, and even hired Shopify experts to assist their current customers who are struggling with the platform. With these initiatives, we can see the effort of Shopify in managing customer relationships, which is the core of B2B marketing. With that, we end our presentation. On behalf of Group 3, we thank you for staying with us and we hope you enjoyed our presentation. Good night.